Do you need us to count down or?
We're live.
All right.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome to the Millennial Monologues podcast, where we talk about anything and everything relating to the millennial lifestyle. We are your hostesses with the mostesses. My name is Alyssa.
And my name is Lexi. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching us on this glorious Friday morning. We're actually recording this on Thursday evening, and we're going to start going live for mornings for you guys on your commutes to work and school, which is such a blast.
You are welcome.
So today, actually, this is season 2 of our kind of whole podcast. So we did season 1 last year, and we're just now getting back into it.
Yeah, took us a while.
So a lot of things have happened. I got engaged to Ryan.
Show him that rock, girl.
Not her Ryan, my Ryan.
Different Ryan.
If you've been watching us, and you know.
That's a nice boulder. I like that boulder.
Thank you. Thanks, Donkey.
You're welcome.
And she birthed a human, which is way cooler than what I did.
Like an actual human came out of me. It was crazy.
That's insane. Coming from someone that has never had a child before, just kind of hearing the fact someone my own age has like had a baby is wild beyond belief.
A full-on baby. It was crazy.
Baby. So we decided, going into our new season, we kind of wanted to dive in and start this new series. I've totally forgot what it was called. We just started.
What They Don't Tell You. So we're going to have several episodes this season talking about what they don't tell you regarding several things.
And who is they? They could be anyone. It's
Who knows?
Like what they don't tell you about getting arrested, what they don't tell you about having food poisoning, or just kind of things in life that maybe have never happened to you, and you know what's going to happen, so you're anticipating, so you want to watch our podcast, or you're just intrigued and you're interested because you're a guy and you want to know, what do they not tell you about giving birth? So that's,
I'll tell you.
That's what season 1 is, or not season 1, episode 1 is about. We're going to kind of dive in head first, no pun intended.
Yep. Head first into childbirth. Woo! This will be fun.
Speaking from personal experience, I have been birthed before.
So
I know a little bit about this.
Yes.
But I've forgotten.
Right.
So I'm going to need some refreshers of coming out of a real vagina.
Fire away. This is going to be, by the way, not safe for work, rated R, hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your children. That's what kind of episode this is going to be. Very candid, very just stating the facts. Go ahead.
If you guys are familiar with season 1, we're really kind of open about being millennials and what kind of goes on with our lifestyles and how we're not going to sugarcoat things and be politically correct. We might be offensive, but that's what life's about.
Sorry.
And if you don't like it, click off.
Yep. Bye. Unsubscribe.
Let's subscribe.
All right. So you're going to ask me questions and I'm just going to answer them. So you go ahead.
Right. So pregnancy.
Yes.
We'll start from there before we get to the actual so we know how conception works, so we'll skip that part.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
We all wanted to know, but
Right.
unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll just,
Okay. Morning sickness.
Oh,
That's
my God.
the first thing that we all know, that like when we find out that we're pregnant, like you have morning sickness.
Everyone's afraid of morning sickness, and my God, you should be. Okay. So first of all, I have no idea why they call it morning sickness, because it is all day. It is not just in the morning. That's a huge misconception. Okay. And also, I was told that it stops after the first trimester. It did not for me. And I will say, I'm going to go ahead and full disclosure. Everything I talk about is not necessarily what happened to me. It's just what I learned from my doctors, like as possibilities of what could have happened. Morning sickness I did experience, and it was horrible. But I'm going to be talking about a lot of things that may not have happened to me. Maybe it did, just for your knowledge. And
then also kind of to bounce off of that, anything that could have happened to you doesn't mean it happens to everyone.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
This is person by person,
every
case
single
by case.
Yes. Every single pregnancy is different. My doctor, she has, given birth to a lot of babies, had a lot of clients. She told me she has never had one case exactly the same as the other. I mean, they're all so different, but this is my story. So
right.
Morning sickness, I mean, it was horrible. I mean, I could not keep down anything. And everyone kept telling me, oh, just like drink ginger ale and eat crackers. Like, I looked at my husband at one point and I said, if one more person tells me to eat a cracker, I am going to snap their neck. Like, I'm going to snap their neck. The crackers do not help. Okay. They don't. And neither does bread and all the other, like lavender, like sniff some lavender. People kept telling me to do that so it would calm me down. I'm telling you, nothing works. Nothing works. The morning sickness is awful, awful. I couldn't even watch a video on Facebook. Those tasty videos? I couldn't even watch those without throwing up.
Oh my God.
I was throwing up at work, in the car, on the way to work, on the way home, at home, in the middle of the night. I'd wake up to throw up. It was horrible. And it lasted 2 months for me.
Jeez.
No, 2 trimesters. I'm sorry. 6 months for me it lasted. It was
every day?
Every day. At one point, I couldn't even keep down water. And my doctor was like, this is a problem. Like, this is a problem. So you're going to have to go to the hospital if you can't keep down water. Yeah.
So when this started happening to you, did you think like this is a me problem and I'm having issues? Or did you think, oh, this is what pregnancy is?
I found out I was pregnant really soon. Really early. I found out at 4 weeks, which is the earliest anyone can possibly find out. You cannot find out sooner than that. And so at first I was like, okay, well, I'm not experiencing any morning sickness. Like, awesome. But it started after like week 8. And, I knew going into it that most people experience morning sickness. I didn't know whether everyone experienced it to that severity. And so I did talk to my doctor and I just said, listen, I cannot keep anything down. I can't even smell something without like gagging.
God.
Like, what is the problem? And so she did prescribe me medicine. There are medicines you can take for it. Some of them make you drowsy. Some of them, help a little bit, but you have to keep taking it. Otherwise, it doesn't. We had tried a few and I found one that worked okay. It worked okay. It did make me tired though. So that was the downside, because she was like, well, you can really only take it at night, but it lasts 12 hours. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be not sick at night. Awesome. What about the whole day? And so I took it in the morning anyway. Right. And yeah, I'd be tired, but I was like, whatever, I'd rather be tired than throwing up all day.
Yeah. So, oh yeah. Like you have to pick and choose. So
pick your battles.
What you want to deal with.
Yeah. So
one thing that we hear about, that's like this common either misconception, and we don't know if it's true or not, is can I have caffeine? Can I have wine? Is 1 glass of wine okay? Should I never drink coffee? And you hear all these restrictions on food, what you can and can't eat. And so are there any foods your doctor said you cannot eat?
Yes. And it was difficult, but at the same time, when you're in that situation, you're like, well, I mean, okay, if it's going to, have any sort of negative effect on my baby, then I don't want to eat it anyway. So the caffeine thing, that was something I enjoy, Dr. Pepper. Okay.
I love it.
And so I was like, okay. I talked to my doctor. I was like, obviously, it's not going to be a problem for me to cut out caffeine because, again, if it's going to hurt my baby, then I don't want it. But what really are the rules? And she basically told me you can actually have up to, like, I think it was like 10 ounces. I can have 1 cup of coffee a day or equal to, is what she said. So I could drink 1 can of Dr. Pepper a day or so, and it would have been fine. I didn't do that anyway because I didn't want to risk it. I probably had, through my whole pregnancy, I probably had maybe 6 or 7 Dr. Peppers, and that was it. I mean, I did not.
And that was
drink
all
caffeine.
in one night.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I didn't want any more because I really was afraid. Because also, this is my first pregnancy too. This is my first kid, so and there's always these jokes like, "Oh, first time mom." Like, "Oh, actually, yeah." So leave me alone about it. But yeah, it was. I definitely didn't drink a lot of caffeine. Now, the wine thing, my doctor said that's actually a huge myth, and even 1 glass of wine is not good.
Wow.
I think every doctor has a different opinion on it, and every doctor has done different studies and has, conducted different research. Like, my doctor told me that's a myth, don't do it. I also, though, read online myself, not that I wanted wine. I actually had done this before I even asked her, but I had done some research just to see. And basically I saw one that said, obviously any amount of alcohol isn't great, but your baby can tolerate up to 1 glass of wine, like a week or whatever it was. So, alcohol is, I mean, if you really need that glass of wine while you're pregnant, like, you do you, I guess, but I didn't want to risk it. So I didn't do it. Now that's just, liquids. there are actually foods that you can't eat as well. And one of them that's huge that you're not supposed to eat. It are several types of seafood. That wasn't an issue for me. I don't like seafood, so that wasn't an issue. But seafood isn't great. Turkey meat or like deli meat you can't eat. Weird. That's weird. I had no idea. I love sandwiches, so I was super disappointed. I make a sandwich for myself every day before work, like love sandwiches. So that was disappointing. I had to really get creative with my lunches, but you can get this disease called listeria if you eat deli meat. You can also get that from raw eggs. You can get it from pink meat. So if you go out to a steakhouse, you have to get it like at least like medium well, like you can't get it rare. Which again wasn't really a problem for me actually, but it's just there are a lot of things you can't eat. Pasteurized milk. You can't have that. It has to be unpasteurized. I honestly didn't even know there was a difference between like the types of milk. I was like, all right, whole or skim, like whatever. But yeah, I actually had to like pay attention to like the type of milk I was buying.
So every time like you would buy groceries or go out to eat, when you were pregnant, were you really conscientious of everything you were eating?
Oh yeah. And well, especially the first 2 trimesters, because I can only keep down like 4 things. So, I really didn't have a choice or else I was going to throw up. But otherwise, I mean, regardless, I was really, really conscious of it for sure, because obviously I didn't want to risk anything. So what else?
So sonograms, in my notes here, in our notes, you put they're not as common as you think.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So when I first found out I was pregnant, remember, I was only 4 weeks along, and my timing for that was interesting because I had actually skipped a cycle beforehand, took a pregnancy test. It was negative. I was like, okay, weird. Then I skipped another cycle. So I was like, what is going on? So then I took a pregnancy test again. It was negative again until about a week later. And so I'm thinking, okay, I've got to be like 9 weeks along. So I call, my OB and I was like, hey, I'm pregnant. Like, I need to come in. She's like, awesome. Like, let's go. So I go in, I'm thinking, awesome.
But
like,
you didn't know you were pregnant though.
I did get a positive pregnancy test at that point, but I had taken like a few after I missed my first cycle. They were all negative. Mm-hmm. I missed a second cycle. I took a few again and they were all negative until like a week or 2 later. So I called my doctor and I was like, okay, I'm pregnant. Like, I need to come in. She's like, okay, let's go. So I go in. And she's like, well, I need to make sure that you're pregnant before we like do anything because sonograms are expensive. And I was like, oh, okay. Cause I thought going in, like they would do a sonogram to see if I was pregnant. And that's not what they do.
Oh.
Yeah. So what they do is they do another urine sample and they test it right then and there to make sure you're pregnant. And then they also do a blood sample to make sure as well. So I was disappointed because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to see my baby for the first time. Like, this is crazy. Like going into the doctor. And I didn't get a sonogram until it was between 12 and 16 weeks that I had my first sonogram. So I didn't get those, cute little pictures until then. So and remember I found out really early so I guess I had skipped that first cycle for no reason because I was only 4 weeks along when I went into the doctor. So it was really weird. Yeah, it was really weird. So the way I found out I was pregnant, that's a whole different story. So it was that was weird.
That's really weird.
Yep. So that's how it happened. But sonograms are not as common. I only had 3 my whole pregnancy.
Wow.
So, and maybe that's common knowledge, but I certainly didn't know that. I thought I'd be getting a few more than that. Especially that first visit to the doctor.
I don't think that's common knowledge. I think a lot of people, they think sonograms are those things that pregnant girls just get when they go to the doctor.
Right. Like just part of the daily routine. Yeah.
Now it makes me it makes more sense when you see people posting pictures and doing photo shoots with them because it's not every day like you're getting your sonogram picture of the baby.
Exactly. Yeah, they're way less common than I think. And I didn't realize that again until I went to the doctor at first and I thought that this is how they see if I'm pregnant for sure or not, but it's not. Mm-hmm. They don't do that. Mm-mm.
So things that could go wrong or be wrong with the baby.
Ooh.
When do you find that out? And what is that like to anticipate, like knowing that there could be issues that you run into?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are so many things that could go wrong that no one really thinks about. So obviously there are the common ones, like you think about any sort of mental illness, you think about any sort of disfigurement, you think about what they're going to look like, you think about those things, but there are so many other things that could go wrong that you don't know until you're in the doctor's office and they tell you, okay, here are all the things that can go wrong. And they don't do that to scare you. They do that because that's the reality. And throughout your pregnancy, you get lots of tests done to make sure that those things aren't your reality. So one of them is gestational diabetes. It's actually super common, and you don't need to be, overweight or have any family medical history of diabetes to get it. It's just one of those things that could happen or not. I didn't have it, but I know 2 people that have. And so with that comes obviously like a really strict diet change during pregnancy and medication and other things. Another one is cholestasis. This is something that I did develop. This is
big word.
Yeah. It's really weird. So cholestasis is something that I did develop towards the end of my pregnancy. So it wasn't as high risk as it can be for me. But basically it's essentially almost liver failure, but only while you're pregnant. Yeah. It's not a good thing at all. And there's really, there's no way to know how people get it or why. It's completely random. And basically, if your liver isn't filtering what you're putting into your body before it gets to the baby, then that's a problem. So that's actually the reason why I had to be induced. And we'll talk about that later on in the show. But cholestasis is another thing that can, that can happen. There are so many, and it is really hard to not worry about those things, especially when you go and you're like, oh, like I'm only thinking of the positives, obviously, because I'm super happy and excited that I'm pregnant. But here my doctor is like telling me like everything that could go wrong, and it's hard. But, and they always say like, don't worry about it. Obviously age has a lot to do with it. If you're having babies in your prime time in your young 20s, like you obviously are at much lower of a risk for those things. But I'm not saying that everyone needs to have babies in their 20s, obviously, but there are certain factors that can minimize those risks. I actually learned just today as well that for second pregnancies, you want to wait until your kid is 18 months before you even try to have a second to minimize those risks as well. And so I didn't know that until just today, as a matter of fact. But yeah, it's really hard to not think about things that could go wrong. We're trying to get this camera. There we go.
In and out. Okay, so for me, there's like different types of people when it comes to medicine and taking pharmaceutical drugs. And I used to be the kind of person where I used to like be vegan and like all natural, and I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to take any sort of drugs, pills, whatever, ibuprofen. But now I'm like, if it's going to work, give it to me. I'll take acetaminophen. Like if I have a headache and someone just hands me something, or if I have the cold, the flu, like I will take any pill, any drug, whatever, like not recreationally, but like just to help me if I'm
give me all the drugs.
Right. Like if I'm feeling terrible, and I will take anything. So when you're pregnant, you can't do that.
No. So you can only take Tylenol when you're pregnant. And even that, it's a smaller dose than what you're used to. So I can't remember the exact milligrams. I think it's only like 500 a day, which that's probably a lot for some people. But I used to take like 4 Aleve at a time. That's probably why my liver was messed up during pregnancy. Let's be real. So why is this camera being weird?
I think it's because it got darker in here.
Probably. So anyways, we can just keep going. But yeah, so you can only take Tylenol, nothing else. You cannot take Aleve. You cannot take Advil. You cannot take literally anything, just Tylenol. No NyQuil, no Dayquil, no Claritin, no nothing. So that was hard because obviously you also experience like discomfort during pregnancy and a lot of pain. So it's hard to not, just be down in pills all day, but you can't. So that certainly was an obstacle as well. Now, I did say earlier that my doctor prescribed me something for my nausea and morning sickness, and that was obviously okay because she prescribed it to me. But over-the-counter stuff, you have to be really careful. It's literally only Tylenol.
That's crazy.
And Tylenol doesn't even work, by the way. Okay, so
seriously,
I'm
though, like
team Aleve all the way.
Kind of a heavy topic. Sure. Miscarriage. How do you know that I'm sure your doctors, they told you like this is how you know when you're going to have one, or if you're going to have one, and how soon can you have one? When is the latest?
So you can have a miscarriage at any point in your pregnancy, actually, which is really just horrible. I mean, it's horrible. And you are, I will say, well, at least I'm also just a paranoid person. I'm just an anxious person. So I was constantly worried about it. Also, my mother did have 2 miscarriages during her life. So, I don't know, to be honest with you, if it's hereditary or not. I mean, I'm sure it's not, because again, every pregnancy is circumstantial, but it is something that, I was worried about. And that's why, a lot of the things that the doctors told me to steer clear from as far as food and drink go, I did, because, you never know, what could cause it. And so as far as my knowledge goes of the topic, which isn't a lot, it starts, the first sign of a miscarriage is bleeding. Now, if you're bleeding during pregnancy, that doesn't mean that you're having a miscarriage. It means that you could be, but spotting during pregnancy is normal as well. So I didn't experience any spotting. I'm glad I didn't, because I would have been flipping out and went, straight to the hospital just in case.
Yeah.
But the first sign is spotting. And then the next sign is less movement in there. If you're at the point in your pregnancy where you can feel movement, because it actually takes a while. You don't just, feel kicking the whole, 9 or 10 months.
Yeah.
But if you're at the point where you can feel kicking and there's less movement in there, that's a bad sign. There are lots of signs, but really what my doctor basically told me was, you'll know if that's happening. Your body will know, and you'll know, because you just do. Motherly instincts, I guess. Womanhood. I don't know. Yeah. It's a really super heavy topic. It makes me so sad, especially now that I have my own baby, knowing people who have experienced that, I mean, I can't imagine. So
yeah. It's kind of one of those things where it's hard to talk about.
Yeah.
And women going through it, I can't even imagine, and I can't understand. So it's not even like our place to say anything.
Right.
But I know people that have had them, and it's one of those things that I think we should talk about.
Yeah.
Just as well as like mental illness and postpartum depression.
I mean, because these are real things that people go through, and these are real concerns that every pregnant woman has. So, I mean, absolutely, it was scary. God bless it didn't, it has not happened to me. But yeah, I mean, so I can go ahead and speak for my mom. She had 2. She had one in between my younger sister and my younger brother, and then another in between my 2 younger brothers. So, but she always, she talks about it really openly, and she'll just say, listen, like, as horrible and as sad as it was, I wouldn't have the 4 kids that I have now if I hadn't, so she was like, I wouldn't change anything, because obviously, she loves the 4 that she has. But it was horrible, but it got better for her, at least. That's really all I can say about it.
Yeah. So with postpartum depression, is that something that you went through? And of course it's a real thing, so I don't know how to phrase it, of like, is it real? Like, duh, it's real.
Yeah.
But like,
I know what you're
it's
saying.
kind of like, how is it different from like real, like, I don't want to say real depression, but like depression with people that aren't pregnant or had a baby. Yeah. What is the difference?
So I did not experience postpartum depression, but I will say, your hormones, and I know this sounds so cliche, but this is 100% true. Your hormones are out the wazoo. Okay. I mean, it's like insane. So I was emotional. Yeah. And I'm not a crier, typically. But I mean, I was crying a lot after I gave birth, and it really wasn't sad. Like, I would literally be just sitting there crying and be like, I have no idea why I'm crying. Like, I have no idea why.
Really?
Like, yeah. And it really was just because of the hormones. Cause at first I was like, I know that I'm not depressed. Like, I know I'm not.
Are you in denial though?
No, I mean, maybe. Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't. I mean,
yeah,
I wasn't.
Know,
but the reason why people get it, there are lots of different factors that can go into it, because I feel like, especially now that we're in this social media culture where everyone's only posting like the most perfect things about everything all the time, there's a common misconception that mothers and babies bond immediately. And for some people, that's not how it works. And when a mom feels that she's not connected, you have to get to know the baby. And when a mom feels that she's not connected to her baby, that is a big factor that can play into postpartum depression. Another thing is obviously the way you look afterwards. no one's body looks phenomenal after giving birth, and going through 9 months of pregnancy. No one looks better than they did before, and that has a lot to do with it. I mean, there's so many different factors that can play a part into whether or not you experience that. Again, I didn't, my doctor and my hospital actually had this like survey deal that like I had to fill out, and it had some really tough questions in there. It would just say like, do you ever find yourself, like staring at yourself in the mirror and crying? Do you ever find yourself, doing this and this? And I took it the day after I gave birth, and then another like 2 weeks after, and then another 6 weeks after, because they really want to do their due diligence, because they can prescribe medicine for it. There is a hotline for any mother experiencing postpartum depression. I have the phone number. What is it? I don't have it memorized.
It's 503-894-9453.
There we go. One more time.
503-894-9453.
Okay, so that is a postpartum depression hotline if anyone out there needs help. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that no one should be ashamed of. A lot of people experience it, and you can't control whether or not you're going to. And just because you experience postpartum depression doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. There's no shame in asking for help. It's something that a lot of women experience a lot. And it sucks, but eventually, it goes away and you're fine, so, yeah.
It's good, like, to educate yourself and know before, like, going into pregnancy and having a baby, and just so you know and you're aware that like, oh, okay, this is happening and this is normal because Alyssa talked about it.
Yeah, because I know everything now.
So recovery after the baby. So before we get to recovery, I want to talk about childbirth. I want to know everything.
Okay.
So from the time that you get to the hospital, let's say your water breaks, whatever, tell me the process of your water breaking, being on the table, pushing the epidural, if you get one, if you don't. Did you have a C-section? Did it come out of the vag? What did that feel like? What did that look like? Did you have a mirror? I want to know everything.
Okay, here we go. So, like I said before, I was diagnosed with cholestasis. So, basically, when you're diagnosed, if you're far enough along, they have to get the baby out right there. Oh, there's no waiting because it's so dangerous. As soon as
they diagnosed you, that was the same day that they...
It was the next day. So because we found out in the afternoon. So I went in the next day. So what happened was, let me just talk a little bit about cholestasis again. Okay. The symptoms are very odd. My hands and feet were so itchy 24/7. I'm talking, I wanted to rip them off and stick them in a blender. They were so itchy. I could not sleep. I could not eat. I couldn't work like effectively. I was miserable because my hands and feet were so itchy. And finally, I just said to myself, I don't normally do this. I'm not a hypochondriac. I'm really not. I'm just going to Google real quick, even though every time you Google what's wrong with me, it basically says you're going to die. I was like, I'm just going to Google, why are my hands and feet so itchy? I'm pregnant. So that's what I did. And this disease came up and I was like, okay, I probably don't have it. Basically, one of the symptoms is stillborns. So that's why I was so freaked out. So I see this and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to call my doctor. I call my doctor. I'm like, listen, my hands and feet are so itchy. At this point, I was like 34 or 5 weeks along. So I was nearing the end. And I was like, my hands and feet are so itchy. I want to die. What is going on with me? I was like, I think I have cholestasis. And she was like, Alyssa, you're a maniac. Like, relax. She was like, I'll bring you in tomorrow. We'll do some blood work and see. I go in, we do the blood work. The results come back negative. I was like, okay, then why are my hands and feet so itchy? And so I was like, okay, whatever.
Such a weird symptom of cholestasis.
Like, so weird. Like, I don't even know. And that's the only symptom. Your hands and feet get itchy. Like, that's it. And so I don't know. Like, I don't know. So a week goes by, and at that point, whenever you're towards the end of your pregnancy, you go to your doctor every week because they have to check to see if you're dilated. They have to check to see that everything's okay because you're nearing the end, right? So the next week I go back and she watches me like scratching the mess out of my hands and feet the whole appointment. She was like, you know what? I want to redo your blood work because you do seem to be really itchy. And I was like, seem to be, girl. I am itchy. So we do the blood work. She calls me back the next day. At this point, I'm like 30. I think actually I must have been farther. I think I gave birth at 38 weeks. So it was around there. So she goes, Alyssa, she gets me on the phone. I'm at work. She's like, you need to be induced tomorrow. Your cholestasis results came back positive. We need to get that baby out.
Why was it negative the first time?
I don't know. And neither does my doctor.
Was it too early?
That's what she thought. She was like, it must have been too early. Now, cholestasis can develop at any point in your pregnancy. And if it develops early, obviously they can't induce you because the baby's still like cooking. So for lack of a better term. So, there are medicines for it, but you also have more appointments just to make sure everything's fine, So I was lucky that I developed it so late because obviously everything worked out. But yeah, it was horrible. So she calls me while I'm at work. I start freaking out. Okay, freaking out. She's like, we need to get you in tomorrow. Like, we need to get that baby out of you ASAP. Like, let's go. So I was like, oh my God. So I go home. I have a legitimate panic attack because I'm like, I'm not ready. Like, oh my God, and my husband's like, listen.
Because you're like, what's happening tomorrow. Like, you
right,
it would just be like a time where you're
right, like, oh, I'm just like walking around on my water breaks. Like, no, that's not happening
today. Like,
yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh my God. So Ryan's like, listen, like, that baby is coming out of you one way or the other. So you might as well let's just, like
for you to say.
Right. Right. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Well, the baby's coming out of you. Okay. Well, I feel better. Yeah.
The baby's going to come out today or in a week. So you might as well just do it.
What?
Just childbirth.
Yeah. How hard can it be? Yeah. So we go in to the hospital. I'm flipping out. I have my little baby bag with like all my stuff. I've got my pillow. I have all this stuff. I'm in my jammies. I'm just flipping.
Are you still itchy?
Yes, I'm still itchy. Meanwhile, so we go in and I have no idea how induction works at this point. You know what I mean? Whatever. So I go in, they're like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to stick something in there.
Why can I see it?
It's like a little.
I can like envision.
I don't know how to describe it. It's like a little. It looks like a pill almost, but it's flat. Like it's in that shape. Yeah. But it's sandpaper. Yeah. And they can't use anything to make that process easier because any sort of lubrication will take the medicine on the sandpaper off. So they literally just have to go in and stick that sucker in there. So that sucked. I'll just say that sucked real hard. Did not like that. So they put it in. They're like, okay, you should be giving birth tomorrow morning now. So around 9 a.m. is when you should start going into labor. I was like, okay, awesome.
So you stayed in the hospital?
So I stayed in the hospital overnight. So they said, we're going to keep you here. I'm hooked up to all the stuff, everything.
Well, that's by the way, reassuring.
Yeah. At least I got to stay in the hospital. Yeah. Honestly, a lot of people will tell me, I really hope I don't have to be induced because I want that natural, like, I'm starting labor at home and I'm going to go to the hospital by myself. Like I want that. And I don't because I am a planner. Like I would so much rather just be there and be in the care, like knowing like everything's fine. Right. Like there's no risk of traffic. There's no like reason to drive recklessly on the way there because you're freaking out. Like, you know what I mean? So that's just my take. Oh, I have not met a single other person that agreed with me on that. So I'm just going to throw that out there. A lot of people would rather, have that be a natural deal, which is fine. Good for them. I was not upset that I had to be induced. I was upset that I had cholestasis, obviously, because I was scared, but I was not upset that I had to be induced. So anyway, they stick the thing in there. 9 a.m. rolls around. Nothing is happening. Like nothing. Keep in mind, when you get induced, or if you're just in labor, you cannot eat or drink anything until after the baby's out.
Oh my God.
Nothing. Not even water. So nothing.
Was it like 9 p.m. when they put the thing?
9 p.m. when they put the thing in. 9 a.m. rolls around. And I have not had any water. I have not had any food. And nothing is happening to my body. Like this baby is just hanging out. So I was like, okay, what's going on? So, the nurse comes in. She's like, okay, well, we may have to try, a different form of induction. And I was like, okay, well, like, what's that? She's like, well, we can give you a pill.
Like, why didn't you try that from the start?
Right. Why do we have to go in there? Like, are you serious?
This should have been the last resort to put sandpaper up.
I agree. But no. So she gives me a pill and my water breaks like an hour later. So, and the water breaking was a weird sensation. It is like how they show it in the movies.
Like it's like water,
like it's not a waterfall, like it's not a water gun. It's just a leakage. Like it feels like you're peeing your pants, but you can't stop it. You know, whenever you're in your midstream, you can stop yourself if you want to. When your water breaks,
when I pee my pants, it just kind of
right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I can stop at any time. When your water breaks, you cannot stop it. Like you can flex, if you will, and nothing will happen. Like it's just coming out. And I did that in the middle of it because I was like, I want to make sure that I'm not just peeing myself right now. Like who knows what my body is going through right now? Like I don't know if I'm peeing or if my water's breaking. It was my water and it broke. So I was like, okay, great. So I'm thinking, because like all the movies show you, when your water breaks, like quick, we're going into labor right now. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Not the case. Not the case. Everyone's different. But at that point, I was only dilated like 2 centimeters. And remember, you have to get to 10. So also, the part of your body that dilates is not the part that you think it is.
What?
You know what I mean? It's not the outside, it's on the inside.
It's at the back
so
of
you
your
can't
uterus?
like you can't just look and see if you're dilating or not.
Oh.
You have to go in there to see.
Oh, okay.
And that process sucks as well because you know, I mean, honestly, like that part sucked because people are not, I mean, they're just like, all right, let's check, you know, and you're just like, yo, like, ow, yeah, can you like relax for a second? Like, let me, like, give me a warning. And they had to check me like multiple times because I was just not like moving along at all. Also for people's first pregnancies, rumors have it that most people go over 40 weeks. And so who knows how long my son was planning on staying in there, but we had to induce, right? So anyway, so finally my water breaks at 2:00. I don't start pushing until 11 p.m. Let me back up. Epidural. So in the meantime, I am experiencing some contractions. Contractions really do just feel like bad period cramps. That's it. They're really not that bad. I mean, they're not. I don't even have a high pain tolerance, and they're really not that bad until you're about to start pushing. But throughout the day, because labor can start, I mean, you can be in labor for multiple like days even. I mean, just depending on how long, you know, like, or how far along you are with the process. So
okay, can you for a second, for our viewers and possibly for me, define what labor is? Is that you pushing for days?
No. That's a really good question because that's what I thought it was too. So we went to these like pre-childbirth like classes, basically like Lamaze classes, but like the new and improved like versions. They're not called Lamaze classes anymore. So we went to these classes and they were like, okay, so there's pre-labor and then there's labor. And I'm thinking, what? You know, like what is that?
Yeah.
So pre-labor is basically where you're experiencing contractions, but they're not consistent and they're not within like 5 to 7 minutes is when you want to get to the hospital. So if you're experiencing contractions, even just 20 minutes apart, don't go to the hospital because they're not going to get you in.
You're not in labor. You're just having contractions.
Right. That's what's called pre-labor.
What does it mean, like, to have contractions? Like, what is your body doing?
Your uterus is doing this. For anyone who's not watching and just listening, it's basically just squeezing and letting go, squeezing, letting go, squeezing. And again, like it just feels like period cramps. Yeah, because it's what it's basically doing is pushing the baby lower, getting ready for it to come out.
So it's shifting the baby to be in the position.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's moving the baby around, to where the baby's head first and the baby is upside down, not right side up and not on its side. And it's down like in your pelvis, like ready to go. So
pre-labor is when it's not within the 5-7 minutes.
Yes.
When you're in labor, it's almost at a rhythm where it's like,
and you're not pushing for all of labor. Like that's a really good question. I'm glad you brought that up because when I say I was in labor, because I was technically in labor from when my water broke up until I gave birth, but I was not pushing that whole time at all. I actually only pushed for 30 minutes to get him out. which I'm not trying to like toot my own horn. This is just really the facts. That's really rare to only be pushing for that amount of time with your first one. But I was ready to get him out, girl.
You had a goal.
I did.
It was going to be the next day, and you wanted him born.
Yeah, I wanted him born that day because remember at that point it's 11 o'clock at night, and she's like, okay, like we're ready. So she had checked me, and she was like, okay, you're 10 centimeters, like it's time to start pushing. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So I looked at the clock right behind my doctor, and I said, I'm gonna have him out in 15 minutes. And she looked at me like, okay, honey, like, okay, yeah, like, sure. And I got him out, and it was actually 23 minutes. He was born at 11:23, and the pushing, it feels like you are taking the biggest dump of your life. And like people told me that, but I thought to myself, that makes no sense because that's a whole different hole.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term, but it's the same you're using the same muscles
that you would
use
out a big poop.
Yes, exactly.
So
and people ask me all the time, so did you poop yourself? Did you pee yourself? Yeah. So they put in a catheter so that you don't pee everywhere. And since you haven't eaten anything, it's very rare that people actually have a bowel movement
so hard that you could poop on the
table. You could, but again, you especially for induction, like, I mean, who knows when people actually just go into labor? Like, I mean, people could be in the middle of a meal and go into labor, and those people probably do, but you wouldn't even know, even if you did, because your doctors are not going to make you feel gross about it. You truly won't know. I mean, you won't know because you're not even focused on that. You're just getting the baby out, and all the muscles are just, it's crazy. Like you wouldn't even know. But I asked my doctor afterwards because I wanted to know. I was like, girl, just be honest with me. Like, did I? And she's like, you actually didn't. Like, you didn't. And most people don't. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
When I was younger, I would have these, and this is where I get gross, these big ass poops because I wouldn't drink enough water. You know when you don't drink enough water?
Yeah.
And you have a big turd that feels like it's stretching your butthole. Okay?
Yeah.
So is that a similar sensation of that?
Honestly,
big
yeah.
turd?
I mean, it's really downplayed, obviously, because but yeah. I mean, it feels.
But you had the drugs though, right?
I had the drugs.
So, but you still felt it.
So here is really my point. About the drugs. The drugs are 100% necessary. Everybody should be using the drugs. The nurses even told me.
We're going to take this out of context. Someone just joined in.
Yeah,
everybody use
the drugs. So after the fact, I asked the nurses straight up, so do you guys like make fun of people who come in here and say that they don't want the drugs? And they were like,
yeah.
Yes, we actually do. And it's always the first time moms because they think I can do it. She was like, second time moms never do. She was like, a lot of times when moms say like, I don't want any drugs, they'll ask for them in the middle, but it's too late. Like you can't have them because it's not going to, it's not going to be effective. So yeah, I definitely had the drugs, but let's start with the epidural. So I always thought the epidural was this big needle that goes starts in your spine and goes and shoots all the way down. They actually put it in like the middle/lower part of your back because it's just your stomach and your legs that they numb. Mm-hmm. The needle did not hurt at all. I don't know why people freak out about it. They numb the area first. So I felt the numbing, which again is a smaller needle. So that obviously didn't hurt. And then they put the epidural in and that was it. I mean, people and I was not afraid of it at all.
People act like the epidural needle is so scary. And it's like,
it's not, it's just like a shot in your back. Like that's it. The reason why people get scared is because it goes in so it goes in your spine, right? But your spine obviously is a bone. And then there's bone marrow and nerves and everything in there. And they have to get it in between the nerves and the bone without puncturing either one. And if they do, you could end up paralyzed if they put it in wrong.
How often do people get paralyzed?
Not often at all. I mean, I don't know the statistic, but are you gonna look it up?
Look that up real quick.
I don't know the statistic off the top of my head. We're gonna find out that information, but I'm telling you, it's fine. They are professionals and they actually have this big piece of tape that they put on your back that maps it out for them and helps them. And also it keeps the needle in because actually the needle does not come out. It stays in there while you're giving birth. I did not know that until that day. I thought it was a shot and then they take it out and you're numb. No, but it stays in there. And the reason why it stays in there is because throughout. Are you looking it up?
Mm-hmm.
What does it say?
Okay, so this is from the American Society of Anesthesiologists.
Perfect. They would know.
The title says, Laboring Under Misconceptions, Epidural Myths May Keep Women from Reliable Pain Management.
Amen.
So this whole article is about myths on epidurals, but the one that struck me was what we were talking about. Is it says myth, epidurals can cause permanent back pain or paralysis. And it says, the fact is, serious complications from an epidural, including paralysis, are extremely rare. Some women have discomfort in the lower back where the catheter was inserted for a few hours or days after the epidural, but it doesn't last.
Yeah, I mean, because it's sore, because it is a big needle. And I like how they actually put catheter in there, because really, it's a needle, but it's a needle that has a tube in it. And the reason why they keep it in there is because you can add more medicine yourself. So at least in my hospital, so the hospital I delivered at, they gave me a button and they said, so they gave me the epidural. I can't remember what time it was, but it was several hours before, well, not several, it was a few hours before I started pushing. Mm-hmm. And they said, here, we're gonna pump some numbness into you. And if you start to feel anything else, just hit this button and, more medicine will come through the epidural and into your body.
Can you overdose on that medicine if you click it too many times?
So I'm telling you, girl, I was just doing this. I was click, 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 because I didn't want to feel anything, but the button, it doesn't let you, like, you can click it all you want, but it's only going to release medicine. I think it was every 20 minutes or so, like maximum. So no. And they took my button away at one point. And I was like, is this because I was abusing the power? And they were like, no, we do this all the time because you have to be able to feel something or else you can't push, which makes complete sense.
So you need to feel a little bit.
You need to feel something. Right. Now, my legs were completely numb. I'm talking one of them fell off the table at one point and I could not lift it back up. That's how they had to lift it for me. I was like, excuse me, somebody dropped something. They had to literally hoist this giant thunder thigh back on the table. But I could feel a little bit of a contraction, but it didn't hurt because, again, it's just period cramps. And yes, they probably are, and they are very severe if you don't have drugs. But since I had the epidural, it wasn't that bad. So I could feel that, but I could definitely feel the actual part where he was coming out. I could feel that.
You could feel the stretching and the head.
Yes, I could feel the stretching in the head. And my doctor's hands were there because, she has to make way. So I could feel that too. Yes. So the pushing, so whenever you're pushing, it's not like you're just constantly push. Like you push during the contractions, because while the uterus is pushing the baby down, and if you're pushing as well, that's what makes it keep going. If you're just pushing and the uterus isn't doing anything, it's going to be way less effective. So that you take your breaks in between, but at some point, your contractions are 30 seconds apart. So it does feel like you're pushing constantly, but you're really not. You do get to take a break in between pushes. And you can't breathe. You have to just, that's it. I thought I was going to be screaming. I wasn't. There's really no way to actually prepare yourself for what you're going to be like, because there's no way to know until you're in the situation. I thought I was going to be screaming, wailing, an absolute maniac. I was actually pretty silent while I was pushing. I did ask my husband not to look because I didn't want him to see. And you know what? People are giving me crap about that, but I don't care.
I wouldn't want him to see either.
Thank you. I did not want him to see. And a lot of people how could you, take that away from your husband, watching your son be born? I didn't want to see it either. I'm telling you,
it's not like you can't see him at all.
Exactly. No one needs to see that. That is nasty. No offense to myself, I guess, or anyone else, nobody needs. I didn't want my husband to see it. That's whatever. So I at one point I was pushing. I was like, "Don't look," and he's like, "I'm not looking. I'm not looking." And I was like, "Are you swear?" And that was really the only yelling I did.
Wish I was there.
And afterwards, my doctor did say that I was very entertaining, patient. I said, "You're welcome."
Who all was in the room with you?
Just the doctor, a nurse, and Ryan. That's it.
And you were adamant on not having any moms or
I
any
didn't
family.
Want any. I didn't want any family. I didn't want any male doctors because I'm very weird about that. I don't go to male OBGYNs. I don't know why. That's just my preference. Some people are this way or that way. I'm that way. Okay. I just don't like the male. So I was like, I don't want a male nurse. I don't want a male doctor. I want all females and my husband. Like that's it. Because that's just my
We
preference.
have the University of Arkansas students here to
Nice.
watch and take notes.
Exactly. Yeah. And I didn't want anyone in there. I just because I don't like medical stuff. Like people always say, "Do you watch Grey's Anatomy?" No, I don't like stuff like that. So I don't want anyone else looking.
People are always asking that.
People are always asking me. No. Any sort of medical show, I don't like.
Anatomy?
Yeah, I don't. No, I don't.
No.
But yeah, no, no. But anyway, no one was in there except for Ryan, a nurse, and my doctor. That's it.
Okay, you've pushed out the little child.
Yes.
You have the baby.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Let's cut to the chase. We know when you look at your baby, you're like, oh my gosh, Lana. I want to know the nasty stuff. That's what y'all came here for. We're not here.
That's what I came here for.
We're not here to talk about when I first looked in your eyes, I fell in love. No, we're not talking about that. So here are some things that I want you to touch on.
Okay.
After you give birth,
Yeah.
Are you constantly bleeding all the time?
Yes.
Do you pee your pants? Do you poop your pants?
Okay.
How do you go to the bathroom? Can you walk?
Should we talk about the afterbirth?
After birth?
That's the nasty.
Hair loss.
Mm.
We already talked about postpartum, so we'll skip over that.
Okay.
Sleeping. How is that? And also sex.
Okay. Let's start with the afterbirth. We're going to go in chronological order. The afterbirth. That felt like, whenever you're driving and you run over those bumps because you accidentally are, you're like switching lanes and like there's bumps already like,
Yeah.
That's what giving birth to the afterbirth feels like.
What?
Because the umbilical cord is so long and it's ribbed like that. And yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird. But you really you don't notice it that much because at that point, like, so they literally take the baby out and they plop him on top of you and that's it. Like they don't clean him off first, like how you see in the movies. Like they literally just plop because
just like a meat sack of blood.
Well, because they want you to they don't want the baby to feel like scared and they want like the mom and baby to be able to bond and whatever. So they obviously like wiped him off while he was on me, but they didn't like a full cleaning.
Was he crying or did they have to make him cry?
No, they had to make him cry and I freaked out because remember I had cholestasis and he wasn't crying. So
crying
the first thing I said was, why isn't he crying? And they were like, it's okay, watch, poke, and he was like, rah, so then the afterbirth comes out. Watch. Yeah. Like, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, exactly. Like, we've never been touched before. So yeah, I
watch. You're adopted.
Oh, that was rude. Watch this. You don't have any hair.
Am I ugly?
Am I ugly? Yeah. So no, he he did cry eventually. But anyway, so that's the afterbirth. It was nasty. Yes. I will say this also. I did have to have a small episiotomy. For those of you who don't know what that is, they did have to do a little cut to make some way.
No.
I only got 2 stitches. It was a very small, incision, but I'd rather be cut in an orderly fashion than tear. And it's, it happens to about 95% of people. And anyone who says that they didn't have to have an episiotomy or they didn't tear is lying. Okay. So that's just that.
Okay.
Stitch.
Let's go from there, from the tear. Okay.
Okay.
When do you have your next cycle?
When did I have my next cycle?
Yeah. After giving birth.
I don't know.
Can you use a tampon?
No. You cannot, nothing can go in until nothing. No tampons, no sex, no nothing. You can barely even, you're actually not even supposed to wipe until 6. Well, okay. 6 weeks, but they give you a little spray, a little spray bottle, just a little squirt, so you can clean yourself and then you just do a dab. Okay. You have to retrain your body how to use the bathroom after giving birth because your body is so at that point, you're used to just pushing that hard all the time that your body is almost consistently in that state.
Yeah, because when you pee, you kind of push to pee. So can you not do that? You have to just sit
retrain your body. And at that point, afterwards, they also have to take a few urine samples while you're still in the hospital to make sure that everything looks normal. And like for you, because a lot of complications can happen to the mom during birth as well. And that's a whole different, but I could barely even give him any urine samples. It was hard. It's, it's hard. You have to retrain your body how to use the bathroom.
What about pooping?
I didn't until a couple days later.
Whoa.
Yeah. So and that's not normal for me.
Push it like.
Yeah, I
anything?
yeah, but it was. I mean, it's
just
a
have to
challenge.
sit there and let it fall out.
Nothing falls. No, it's yeah, I mean it's hard and well in that area is fine, but it's the other area where you just have to do the dabs.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
but nothing. Yeah, so and then everyone has a 6-week like checkup at your doctor, and they clear you for exercising, for sex, for working out, for whatever. Before that 6 weeks, you're not supposed to drive.
What?
Because whenever if you think about how you sit whenever you drive, you know it's sensitive down there. So you're not supposed to drive. You're not supposed to walk for a long period of time.
You
can take small walks. You can be in a car, yeah, but you can't drive. I don't really know what the difference is, but yeah. And you can't walk for long periods of time. You cannot exercise. There are so many things that you can't do until you see your doctor after that 6 weeks, because they have to make sure like all your stuff is back where it needs to be, and that everything looks back to normal. Yeah. What were the other nasty things?
So then other ones are hair loss.
Ooh, hair loss. Yeah.
You can't exercise, and we talked kind of about the bleeding in the bathroom with wiping.
Yeah, I bled for weeks. Yeah, and you can't. And it's not like. And whenever I went to my 6-week checkup, they were like, "So have you had a cycle?" And I was like, "I honestly couldn't tell you. Like, I don't know if I did or not, because it's been constant." And they're like, "Okay, well that's
every
normal."
day.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you have to basically wear, and not basically, you do have to wear adult diapers for like a few weeks afterwards. Those like Depends diapers, like for old people. Yeah.
Do you like show up to work with your diaper hanging out?
No, because I didn't go back to work. I had 3 months
of
of maternity leave. So, and the bleeding only lasted for like 5 weeks. So I had to wear like legit, I mean, and every woman does, don't act like I'm nasty. Diapers, adult diapers. Yeah. Because it's just, I mean, that's what happens. Like, it is what it is, this is, I mean, I'm preparing all y'all, like, you're welcome, because this is no fun afterwards.
So now you come home and baby is in bed and everything, but now you have a whole nother set of challenges. So
no kidding.
There's paranoid of the baby when sleeping.
Paranoia in general.
Did you co-sleep? Did he sleep in a crib?
Okay.
Putting clothes on him. What is that experience like with that little baby doll body? And then also kind of like breastfeeding and all of the post-baby stuff.
Okay. So you bring the baby home. First of all, the drive home. We went like 5 miles an hour because we were so scared, because he's so fragile,
don't know how to...
and he was little because, he was early, because he had to be early. And so he was like 7 pounds even. And, I mean, that's tiny. Like, he was a teeny tiny guy.
He did all this work to have this little child.
He was so
driving
slow. I know. Yeah. I mean, we were driving. And I sat in the back seat with my son. His name is Jackson. I sat in the back seat with Jackson, and I was just like caressing like the car seat, like just making sure like nothing happened. And Ryan's like literally driving like 5 miles an hour, like everyone like hazards on, like go around. It was hilarious. So then we get home, and I mean, honestly, everything was fine. Like, I mean, breastfeeding is so hard. You think that it's just like, oh, like how hard can it be? You just stick them on there. Like, it's so hard because latching can be an issue, lactation can be an issue for some people. However much you're producing. I mean, some people get a great, amount, and some people don't. And so you have to have a specific diet to be able to maintain the supply. So there's just a lot that goes into it. I only breastfed for like 2, maybe 3 months. And then I stopped and just switched completely to formula. I was doing formula and breastfeeding because that's what my pediatrician had recommended. But I eventually, my supply like ran out because, I mean, honestly, it probably was, my fault. Like, I probably wasn't, sticking to the dietary needs for that. And it's not like I was eating like trash food all the time, but you have to eat a certain amount of food every day. And I'm just not used to eating that amount of food every day.
Wow.
And so, and I mean, I mean, my diet isn't amazing, but it's not horrible. I mean, I'll eat chicken and veggies for dinner, but occasionally I'll enjoy, a nice Taco Bell meal, but which is fine, but you have to eat a certain amount of calories every day. And that's the part that I wasn't doing. And I think that's what contributed to my like lack of supply. But yeah, it's really hard. It's hard to do. And newborn babies, they have to eat every single 2 hours. Like they have to.
Jeez, every 2 hours.
Every 2 hours. So that includes day and night. And everyone kept telling me, like, make sure to sleep like while he's sleeping. And, you know, that's really easy to say. But to do that, it is incredibly hard because, again, first of all, they're waking up every 2 hours and, you know, you have to feed them, you have to change them or whatever. But, like, you also have things to do around the house, too. Like, you have things to do, you know? I mean, so it's challenging to just, like, be able to sleep whenever he's sleeping and be awake whenever he's awake and whatever. And so, but yeah, they have to eat. They have to eat every 2 hours. That's what their bodies require. And they only eat and they only eat like 2 ounces at a time at that age because they're so small. That's all they can fit in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So that's breastfeeding.
So putting
clothes on him. Okay. I don't want to say I was afraid to put clothes on him because I wasn't afraid to put clothes on him, but I was very gentle. Yeah, because you're like, you know, the fingers, like the fingers are so small, and you're just like, I don't want to like rip those off, like you know, and I easily could. Like this is like not good, and so yeah, I you know just putting clothes on, especially like long sleeves, like yeah, that was tough. I did not. Okay, I hate to say I did not co-sleep because every once in a while I would, but he has a bassinet next to our bed. And that's where he slept for, you know, the majority of the time. Every once in a while, if he was having like a really rough night, I'd stick him in the bed with me. A lot of people say there's so many risks to that. Like, how could you do that? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. There is such thing as SIDS. Yes. Which is, what is the acronym? Hold on.
Hi.
Sudden infant death syndrome. That's what it is. SIDS. Obviously, everyone is terrified of that, right? Paranoia at its finest. And some people say that co-sleeping can increase your risk of SIDS. Maybe, but that also has a lot to do with the temperature of your house because they can overheat if they're in their bed with you and it gets too hot. It has to do with if you move around a lot in your sleep. It has to do with a lot of things that could, you know, become harmful to the baby if you co-sleep. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, I was as stiff as a board whenever he was in that bed with me. And I do move around a lot in my sleep, typically. But when he's in the bed with me, I don't move so hard to where my back hurts the next day because I'm just sitting there like this, you know, and I don't move. Like if I fall asleep, like in this position where like my arms are stiff and he's like around me, I wake up like that. Okay. And that might not be the case for everybody, and that's fine. Maybe people don't want to risk it. That's fine. I don't risk it every night either, but occasionally when he just wants some mommy cuddles, but I need a nap, that's what happens. So, yeah, there's that. Also sometimes whenever they sleep, they're really still and that would freak me out to where I'd be like, hey, you know, like give him a little, like, you know, hey, you okay? You know, and he'd be like, you know, like do a little shake. Okay. All right. Just making sure.
Like dies. Like, do you put your finger under his
that
nose?
Is really how, yeah, but I mean, if you put the finger, like their breath is so, they're so small, like how can you really feel that, you know? And so, I mean, yeah, like every new mom I know has done that to where like their baby is so still that it freaks them out and they start like, you know, like shaking them, like not like violently, not violently shaking, but just a little like beep, beep, like you okay? Yeah. And then they do a little, you know, like head roll and then you're like, okay, cool, you're fine.
Yeah.
Picking a pediatrician was something I didn't really think about until, you know, I mean, there are so many, I mean, obviously we don't have enough time in this podcast to get through every single aspect of childbirth and pregnancy and the fourth trimester, as they call it. Mm-hmm. But there you go. I hope I was informative to people thinking about having a baby.
It's a lot to unpack, especially when everything you hear is just from the media and from positive moms that just want to show all of the good things on Facebook.
Yeah, and also like movies where like the water breaks and you have to get to the hospital and you have to do all these things and like, you know, it's push and then they take the baby away and like that's it. Like that's not how it is, y'all. Like that's like the only thing that the movies got right is that it is a puddle of water when it breaks and that's it. Like that's all they got right.
That it's painful with them like screaming, but
yeah, and the contractions are painful, yes, but dear God, get the drugs. It'll make a world of a difference. I mean, I wouldn't know because I never tried without, but it was already a little painful with it, so I can only imagine.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, that's all the time we have today for this podcast of childbirth and what normal people don't tell you, because Alyssa clearly is not a normal person. So what you don't really hear about childbirth. So next week, what are we talking about?
We are going to talk next week about green flags for dating. So Lexi got engaged. I had a baby. How did we find those people? How do we find them? We dated people. And guess what? We found some green flags for dates for relationships that we said, this might be a keeper. We're going to talk about green and red flags for dating on the next episode next week. Check us out on the podcast app, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. See you next time.
I don't really know what else to say.
That's it.
Bye.
Bye.